Hey, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So I've got my final wildcard team here for you today. There's very unlikely to be any changes unless there's some injuries. And full disclosure, it is the same team that I've been thinking of earlier in the week, but I do have some new charts to kind of back up what I'm thinking, and therefore hopefully you can use those charts for your own decision making as well. So feel free to pause the video at any point to take a look at them in a bit more detail. And please do subscribe if it helps you out as well. I do really appreciate all the support on the channel. It is awesome, having a small channel where it does make a difference when you get as much support as I've been getting recently. So thank you for that. So let's take a look at the team. And I am going with Raya in goal. I'm just settled with it. He is the best goalkeeper in terms of all-round performance, but also his fixtures coming up. You never want to be making that goalkeeper transfer and having someone that you're more than happy with and just settled in the lineup that you know is going to play is just really beneficial and I think is worth the cost. When we take a look at the chart here with clean sheets versus saves per game, Raya is ranking pretty well. He's getting a good amount of saves, close to 3 saves per game for that extra point, but he's also got 3 clean sheets so far this season in 5 games. He's probably about the third best performing goalkeeper. And you might be asking, well, if he's only the third best performing goalkeeper, why aren't you going for the best performing goalkeeper? And I just don't see that someone like a Nick Pope is going to keep 4 clean sheets every 5 games. After 10 game weeks, would we expect Newcastle to have 8 clean sheets? No. And the same for Vicario. He's almost making too many saves per game, I would say. And it might sound a little bit strange, but if a goalkeeper is making a lot of saves, if they didn't make those saves, there goes their clean sheet. And that sounds obvious, but I think if Spurs are conceding a lot of chances, the averages would say that eventually some more of those chances are going to go in than they are currently. So I just think Raya is the most consistent player and the most reliable goalkeeper that you can get at the moment. But I really don't mind a Nick Pope or a Vicario. If you're looking to save 500,000 somewhere, I think that's absolutely fine to go for one of them. So into defence, and I am sticking with the Arsenal triple up in defence. I just don't think their attacking options are consistent enough, but they're also not performing as well as I think Arsenal can do defensively. And if you want a guaranteed or a more guaranteed chance of points, as close as it can get, I think the defence is great. Now, I have benched Gabriel, which again, you might be thinking, why are you benching a 6.1 million defender? I just think Newcastle away is a really tough entry point for Arsenal. And a bit like what I said with Raya, you're getting them in for the long term. So Gabriel, I just think Calafiori has more of an attacking threat. I think he can score more points against Newcastle, but more often than not, I will be using the triple Arsenal defence. Vardiol is an interesting pick. My Man City players, I've kind of just got in for the next 3 game weeks. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm totally fine with them coming out of my team after game week 8. I don't necessarily see me keeping them really long term, but you never know. If they start performing well, some of them might stay. And Tarkowski and Senesi, I'm sure you've heard a million times, are really good for defensive contributions. So they're in just because I like their sort of baseline of points. I think they're good at getting you 3 or 4 points minimum per game. And then if they do get a clean sheet, then you're looking at a really good contribution of points to your overall score. So as we look at the chart, an interesting looking chart here because we've got defensive contributions per game and clean sheets. My defenders rank here. So I've got the balance of defensive contribution players such as Tarkowski and Senesi, but I've also got the balance of what I think is a consistently good defense in Gabriel and Calafiori. I don't see Calafiori coming out of the starting 11 anytime soon. So if he does, it happens. Any defender has a chance of rotation at the moment. But if you want to pause this chart and take a close look, feel free. Again, a bit like with Nick Pope, Newcastle's defenders, Dan Burn and Livramento, if you want to get them in, it's fine. Just don't expect them to keep so many clean sheets. And if you're picking one, you've got to go for Dan Burn because of his higher defensive contribution rates. But at 5 million, if you were going for that, you could always just go for someone in the 4.5 million range who's fairly close as well, who you also think might keep some more clean sheets. Vardiol isn't actually on this chart. He's a bit more of a out there pick, but that's because he's only just started playing again for Man City. And I do think that as time goes on, he just will be their starting centre back. You can see him sometimes starting at left back, but I also wouldn't be surprised if averaging 8.5 defensive contributions in his two games so far. If he just gets a clean sheet to go along with that, you're looking at the same sort of similar points as Senesi has been picking up. So into midfield, and I'm sticking with Kudus and Semenyo. I already own them, had them from the start. Really proud of myself for getting those picks in early, and there's no reason to take them out. Originally, the plan was to take Kudus out after a few game weeks, but then I've had other transfer issues, injuries, team selection players who aren't playing in their teams, and Spurs fixtures look pretty good for the near future. There's no reason to take Semenyo out anytime soon. I've gone for Reinders and Caicedo at 5.6 million. I just don't see how you're going to get better value than them for the price. So Reinders is really highly owned by a lot of other managers, and sure, that's a factor when you're thinking of which players to get that you don't want to get left behind. But I'm also think he's quite a good player for the price for the next three game weeks. And Bumo is my premium pick, if you like, even though he's only 8.1 million. And when we take a look at the chart here with points per game and expected goal involvements, we can see with my five midfielders that Mbumo at the top there, he's doing really well for expected goal involvements. He's just not converting those chances, or people aren't converting his assist chances. And what happens with expected goal involvements over the course of the season is that players tend to meet their averages. So if someone is averaging an expected certain goals and they're hitting below that over time, they will overperform their expected goals usually and then meet that points metric. So someone like a Bruno Fernandes who is expected even more goals, he has been getting more goal contributions than Mbumo. And you look at Semenyo on the far side of the chart, and he is overperforming his expected goals, but he's also just playing really well. So I wouldn't expect him to keep up with those goal contributions over the course of the full season. But he's also someone who I'm not going to take out of my own team, right? So he's someone who it's dependent on your own team, and he's obviously a great pick. I think the key of FPL is looking at where points are going to come from next. So anyone could look at Semenyo's points and say, wow, he's playing really well. I think I want him in my team. But if he's really highly owned, all that does is just match your team to everyone else's. So now you're getting the same points as everyone else. Where are you going to find the edge from that's a little bit different, that's going to claw you up against people in your mini league or extend your lead? And that's where players like Mbumo come in, who are maybe underperforming so far, but the data is there. They're getting the chances. And I think he's someone who can perform really well in the next few game weeks. Kudus and Reinders are the sort of players that going to get you sometimes goal returns, and then they're going to blank for more weeks than they're returning. But for the price, you can't expect much more from a 6.5, 6.6 million midfielders and below. I think you just have to take the rough with the smooth, but at least they are playing a lot of minutes. They're players who are getting on the pitch. The same for Caicedo. He's in there for his defensive contributions. I don't think he's going to get as many goals per game, but I don't need him to. He'll probably be on the bench, and happy for him to come in with a high baseline of 4 or 5 points each game week. So up front, I've still got João Pedro, Haaland, and Evan Nielsen. Happy with all three. Haaland, like I said previously, is kind of just renting Haaland for 3 game weeks and seeing how it goes. He's someone that I am fearful of if I didn't own him, and potentially could be triple captaining him in the near future. I won't be doing that this week. I just think Burnley are going to set up a bit defensively and there's not going to be the space for him. But in the next couple of game weeks, he is a triple captaincy option for me. When we take a look at the chart, we can see my three strikers are here. And again, goal contributions versus expected goal involvements for strikers. A lot of the strikers here are actually overperforming their expected goal involvements. You look at João Pedro, who's getting 5 goal contributions and he's only expected less than two. That's a little bit concerning in terms of his future performance, but because he's the only number 9 for Chelsea, I think he's someone who can do well in the near future. And again, so highly owned, and I already own him. There's no need to force him out of my team. When you look at the other striker options, especially for the price, Haaland looks head and shoulders the best striker, which shouldn't be a shock, but he's actually just forming what he's supposed to. He's expected about 6 goals contributions, and he's got 6 goal contributions. So he's actually not doing anything special in terms of what he's supposed to. He's actually scoring, I think, fewer goals than he has done in his previous season at this stage. So that's really interesting, the fact that he could continue that trend. Evan Nielsen is just one of those strikers that I think is just good. And we do have a lack of options up front. So it's either this or going for someone like a Calvert-Lewin or a Muniz from Fulham. But I've been there and done that, so I don't really need to sort of go for a cheaper striker. I think I'd rather start with Evan Nielsen and then downgrade in the future if needed. So the cost is 100.1 million for me. I've still got zero point 0.3 in the bank. And the strengths are that there's a lot of transfer options. And what I mean is, when I look at my defense, I don't anticipate keeping all those defenders forever. I might just need those transfer funds. But right now, I don't need to transfer out a Gvardiol, Calafiori, Gabriel, or Tarkowski. What I'll wait and do is, if one of them gets injured, then I'll sell that one. And that way, I'm not going to get it wrong, if that makes sense. There's no point swapping, say, a Gvardiol for an Esteve at the moment when I don't need the cash. And then if Calafiori doesn't perform, then do I sell him as well? So I'm kind of just keeping my options open in terms of transfers, and that does mean I think I've got fantastic depth. This might look like the most well-rounded team I've ever had in the entirety of FPL. The negatives are that there's no Liverpool, and that's something that doesn't necessarily concern me, but I think it's something that could come back. But there's so many Liverpool options. I don't know who you'd go for at this stage. And there's maybe too many options in my team. I have to sort of get the benching selection correct. So there's a chance that I do have a lot of points left on my bench. I think in the next few game weeks, I probably will sell some of these. I think when I've got the option to keep my squad as strong as it is, it just makes sense to have them in. And then I can gradually reduce the bench if needed. So let me know what you think of the team. I'm pretty settled on this. I don't really see that I'm going to be changing anything anytime soon, but always interested to hear your thoughts. And, let me know if you've got any questions in the comments as well. I'll always get back to you. So, yeah, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully, looking forward to game week 6, and I will see you in the next one.